Another day, another bridge deal signed by a restricted free agent. This one out of Winnipeg, Patrik Laine and the Jets agreeing to a 2-year, $13.5 million deal. Will pay him an annual average value of $6.75 million. Let's get some instant analysis right now from Winnipeg. Let's bring in Sean Reynolds. Sean, your initial thoughts on this deal?
Well, I think it's just an absolute steal of a deal for the Winnipeg Jets, and just another example of General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff somehow finding a way to get really good players under really good contracts. And I think the thing that really stands out about this one to me is we knew that the Jets wanted to get Patrik Laine to a 2-year deal. He didn't want one of these Braden Point deals or Matthew Tkachuk deals where it's 3 years, heavily loaded on the end, so that the player walks out of that and can go to arbitration and arbitrate a 1-year deal and then walk into unrestricted free agency. The Jets didn't want that. So what they get instead is something very similar. It's a very similar path to what we saw from either Josh Morrissey, who signed a 2-year deal and then turned that into a long-term contract extension. He's now locked up by the Jets for the next 9 years. Or Jacob Trouba, who did the same path, a 2-year deal, and then he arbitrated the third year after that, which would have led him into an arbitration year where he could walk as a UFA. What it means is it gives the Jets time to decide what they want to do with Patrik Laine or convince him to stay. We know that there's probably been a little bit of hard feelings out of this situation, and that, potentially Patrik Laine would walk out of this and be a little frustrated. We heard him make comments about he didn't know where he was going to play and sounded like he was open to playing elsewhere. Well, they now have still 4 years to try and convince him to stick around, but 2 periods of arbitration where if they decide that through that arbitration process things aren't going well and they need to move him, they can at least move him for something, similar to what they did with Jacob Trouba this past year.
How real do you think the chatter was of Laine maybe starting the season on a team that wasn't the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, I think his agent was willing to go down that road. But again, I think maybe it was a little more likely that he was going to sign, because again, I take a look at this deal and I think it's all Patrik Laine's side giving and it's all the Jets taking. They've got a phenomenal deal out of this. And again, I can't stress enough how often we've seen this from Kevin Cheveldayoff. I mean, if you take a look, I'm just counting some guys up here. This is Patrik Laine, Mark Scheifele, Nick Ehlers, Connor Hellebuck, and Blake Wheeler all signed for less than it's taken the Leafs to sign Matthews, Tavares, and Marner. That's just an absolute steal to me. How he does it over and over again, I don't know, but he's good at negotiating. He knows what kind of window he's trying to build for himself and is somehow able to get the players to stick into that window.
I mean, for all the credit you're giving him, this hasn't been an easy summer for him and the Jets, obviously. There was the Trouba trade, the Morrissey signing, the Buffalo news, and the 2 RFAs, one of which Patrik Laine is now signed. How do you think the management has handled this offseason altogether?
Well, at the beginning of the summer, when people would ask me what is Kevin Cheveldayoff going to do over the summer, I would say to them he's going to lose all of his unrestricted free agents. And that's what it's going to take, because if you took a look at the numbers, is simply what it was going to take to give himself the option to sign Kyle Connor and Patrik Laine long-term, if that's what it was going to take. Now, it hasn't taken that in this situation, but he needed to leave himself this room. Now, he puts himself in a situation where if he wants to sign Kyle Connor long-term, he's got a lot of room to do that. I think it's in the neighborhood of 8.4 million now that he has to do that. He should be able to get that done and should be able to leave himself a little bit of room. So should the Jets find themselves in contention this year, if he wants to make a trade deadline move, he's able to do that.
And he certainly hasn't been shy of making that move at the deadline over the last couple of years. Got to ask about Connor just before the season starts in less than a week. Chances he's in the lineup when it gets going?
Yeah, I would. I don't know if they've left themselves enough time in talking with Paul Maurice, if they've left themselves enough time to get game ready at this point. But I don't think that his deal will take that much longer, considering now the amount of space the Jets have left themselves, and the fact that with one guy down, I think there's not that waiting in the queue, you go first kind of thing. Now that Patrik Laine has gone down, I think it allows the Jets to very much focus in on those negotiations. Both sides know how much money is left aside, and so I would expect something to get done in fairly short order.
Kyle Connor, Mikko Rantanen, the notable RFA still left unsigned. Patrik Laine, though, is Patrik signed. 2 years, $13.5 million. Sean, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.